His last command as emperor of the Dacian dynasty was met with a chorus of horrified pleas. Kneeling before me were the pillars of my empire, men of wisdom and war, their faces etched with disbelief as they begged me not to trade my late mother Novel.Tried's most sacred relics. They saw it as madness, a desecration of memory for the sake of a mysterious, beautiful boy I had sheltered in my palace. But as I watched them prostrate themselves, their pleas fell on deaf ears. They could never understand. For them, I was trading away a priceless legacy. For me, I was bartering with fate itself, trying to purchase the life of a man who was drowning in an agony they couldn't possibly comprehend. I turned my back on their cries, my resolve hardening into steel. In that moment, I knew with a chilling certainty that I would sacrifice anything, even the memory of my own mother, to save him. My first encounter with him was an intrusion of violence into the tranquility of my imperial garden. I was walking with my head eunuch, Alexander, seeking refuge from the oppressive summer heat in a lakeside pavilion. The air was heavy with the scent of lotus blossoms and damp earth. But as I pushed aside a curtain of weeping willow branches, another scent assaulted my senses, a scent that was metallic, coppery, and utterly out of place. It was the smell of blood. The imperial guards, sensing danger, surged forward, their swords drawn, creating a protective barrier around me. But my eyes were already fixed on the source. There, slumped against the ornate woodwork of the pavilion, was a young man. He was a slash of crimson against the serene green and gold of the garden, his robes the color of a fresh wound. Even in his ruined state, his beauty was startling, almost offensive in its perfection. His eyes, though squeezed shut in pain, were framed by lashes as dark as a moonless night. A straight, aristocratic nose and a sharply defined chin gave his face an angular, defiant quality. His lips, thin and pale from blood loss, were pressed into a line of grim endurance. He was a masterpiece sculpted from suffering, a living paradox of breathtaking fragility and fierce, untamed danger. He seemed to sense my presence because his eyes snapped open. They were black and white, devoid of any warmth, sharp enough to cut. A low growl, more animal than human, rumbled in his chest. "Human," he rasped, the word dripping with contempt. "Get lost." Alexander, ever the loyal servant, bristled at the insolence. His voice, high and reedy with fury, cut through the tense silence. "How dare you speak to the Emperor Euros?" I raised a hand, silencing him with a single gesture. My gaze remained locked on the boy. I gathered the silk of my robes and took a step forward. The movement seemed to break his fragile control. With a guttural cry of effort, he tried to push himself upright. His knuckles were white and raw, his palms torn and bleeding from where he Novel.Tried declawed at the ground for purchase. The pain must have been excruciating, yet his eyes only grew darker, more feral. He looked as if he would tear me limb from limb if I dared to come any closer. A strange pang, something akin to empathy, twisted in my gut. I stopped, deliberately creating a space between us, an offer of peace. "Don't be afraid," I said, my voice softer than I intended. "I am the Emperor. It is my duty to care for my people." I extended my hand, palm up. His gaze flickered from my fingers to my face, his expression a toxic cocktail of disbelief and mockery. "Emperor," he spat the word like a curse. "What do you want from me? I cannot bear to see one of my subjects in such pain," I replied, summoning a smile I knew was disarmingly innocent. I had always been aware of my own pleasant appearance, a tool I'd learned to wield effectively, but it had no effect on him. He simply spat a mouthful of blood onto the pristine white sand at my feet. "I'll say it one more time," he hissed, his voice cracking. "Get the hell away from me." He was a cornered wolf, all smiles and bravado, but I could see the profound brokenness beneath the surface. We were locked in a stalemate, the air thick with the buzzing of cicadas and the suffocating summer heat. A single bead of sweat traced a path down his temple, glittering in the sunlight before it fell. For the first time since I'd woken up in this world, I felt a genuine echo of another's pain. "And what if I don't?" I challenged softly. The words hung in the air. His brow furrowed, his breath hitched in his throat, and then, without another sound, he collapsed. Even as unconsciousness claimed him, his final glare was a promise of retribution, a raw and unbroken that burned itself into my memory. Alexander rushed to my side. "Your Majesty, should we deliver him to the Darley Temple for interrogation?" I nudged the unconscious boy lightly with the toe of my silk slipper, a soft smile playing on my lips. "The Darley Temple? No. Prepare the West Annex. Have the Imperial physicians see to his wounds immediately." Alexander's bewilderment was plain on his face, but he didn't dare question my command. In the Dacian dynasty, the emperor's word was absolute law. The next morning, I was holding court when the Grand Tutor, a man named Mason, approached me. His face, a roadmap of wrinkles and wisdom, was streaked with tears. "Your Majesty has truly transformed," he proclaimed, his voice thick with emotion as he knelt before the throne. "It is a blessing for our Dacian dynasty." He began to list my accomplishments over the past 2 years: euros quelling the Lingnan miasma, managing the Yellow River floods, resolving the Chaman upheaval. I listened with a faint, detached smile. He was praising the young emperor, Leo, whose body I now inhabited. He couldn't possibly know that the soul behind these eyes belonged to a man from the 21st century, a man who had been thrust into this role with no. "Your emperor is long gone, old man," I thought. "I am a ghost wearing his crown." Mason, ever the shrewd observer, lowered his voice. "That young man you brought to the West Annex. Your Majesty, are you considering making him a male consort?" The customs of the Dacian dynasty were liberal. Previous emperors had often taken male companions. I said nothing, my fingers tapping a silent, steady rhythm on the arm of the dragon throne. My silence seemed to unnerve him. "Forgive my impertinence, Your Majesty. I have overstepped," he said, rising to leave. "It's fine, Grand Tutor," I replied. "You are getting on in years. Try not to trouble yourself with such matters." He feared I would be lost to debauchery, distracted by a pretty face. Little did he know, my interest in the boy was far more complicated. After court, I made my way to the West Annex. The boy was still unconscious, his face pale and delicate against the silk pillows. The network of wounds that covered his body made him look like a porcelain doll that had been carelessly shattered. As I drew near his bed, his eyes snapped open, a primal instinct for danger overriding his weakened state. He was awake. It was in that moment that my situation truly crystallized. I wasn't just in a historical drama, I had transmigrated into a danme, a boys' love novel. The original story's 2 male leads were celestial immortals, paragons of virtue and power. I had wanted nothing to do with a convoluted plot, resolving to be a diligent emperor, burying myself in state affairs to avoid any entanglement. But this boy, seeing him fight to stay conscious despite his grievous injuries, reminded me of someone else. Before I came to this world, I had rescued a small, half-starved wolf cub. He had the same defiant, untamable spirit in his eyes. The memory hit me with an unexpected force. I stepped closer, my fingers gently tracing the line of his cheek. "So many scars," I murmured, a teasing note in my voice. "It cost a small fortune to have them tended to. How do you intend to repay me?" His skin was cold, but his gaze was scorching. Those sharp, bloodshot eyes were filled with venom and suspicion. The resemblance to my little wolf was uncanny. A maid entered with a jar of ointment, the calming scent of incense filling the room. "The young lord requires his medicine applied," she said softly. I took the jar from her, my eyes fixed on him. "Most of your wounds are on your back. It would be easier to apply this if you removed your robes." The words had barely left my lips when his eyes flashed a dangerous crimson. His voice, when it came, was a raw, furious snarl. "Don't you dare touch me." It was a threat and a promise. He would rip apart anyone who tried. I let out a sharp sigh and waved the servants away, leaving us alone in the room with the scent of herbs and unspoken hostility. Alexander, ever the warrior, was peeking through a small hole he'd poked in the paper window, his expression a mixture of anxiety and disapproval. Inside, the boy had managed to sit up and was clumsily attempting to apply the ointment to the crisscrossing whip marks on his own back. I watched for a moment, and then an impulse I couldn't explain seized me. I threw the door open. He spun around, his face flushed with a combination of effort and anger. And then I saw it. There, on his left shoulder blade, was a tattoo. It was a blooming peony rendered in exquisite detail, its petals the color of blood. It was the mark of the novel's second male lead. This wasn't just some random wounded boy. This was John, the heir to the demon clan. My mind raced, the forgotten details of the novel flooding back with horrifying clarity. His life was a litany of pain. The peony tattoo wasn't a choice, it was a curse, carved into his flesh with blades dipped in water from the deepest abyss of the demon sea. A single drop of that water was said to burn a soul from the inside out for an eternity. So, on top of all his physical injuries, he was enduring that unspeakable torment. "Your Majesty," Alexander's voice called out from the doorway, pulling me from my shock. But I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that this was him, the future demon sovereign. Reading his story, I had felt a profound pity for him. He'd lost his mother at a young age, been tormented by his jealous half-brothers, and suffered unspeakable things at the hands of his father, a Novel.Tried's friend, a monster named Oliver, who coveted his beauty. He was in the human realm now because he had detonated his own cultivation career, a desperate act of self-destruction to escape Oliver's clutches. In the original plot, John would spend 20 long, miserable years in the human world scrounging for survival before finally encountering the novel's main protagonist. The protagonist would help him find a mythical herb, snowgrass, which would heal his shattered core and restore his powers, setting him on the path to becoming the fearsome demon lord, a being feared by all realms, but tender only to the one who saved him. Thinking of the hell he was destined to endure for the next 2 decades filled me with a strange sense of responsibility. In one particularly brutal part of his story, to avoid being forced into submission by other men during his time in the human world, he had even disfigured his own face. I let out a slow breath. Thank God I found him first. I looked at his face, so dangerously beautiful, and whispered to myself, to destroy a face like this would be a crime against heaven itself. He wasn't scheduled to meet the protagonist for another 20 years. Keeping him here, safe in my palace, seemed like a perfectly reasonable deviation from the plot. John hated having servants near him, a lingering trauma from his past. So, I dismissed everyone once more and approached his bed. Alexander hovered anxiously outside, convinced this feral boy would lash out and harm me. But I wasn't the fragile emperor he thought I was. In my previous life, I was a trained kickboxer. Facing a half-dead boy with no spiritual power held no fear for me. "You slimy human, stay back," he hissed, flinching as I drew near, but he was too weak to move away. I reached out and gently took the hand he was using to apply the ointment. The skin was taut with muscle, his body in remarkably good shape despite his ordeal. As my fingers brushed against the trembling muscles of his back, his other hand shot out in a surprisingly fast punch. I caught his fist easily, my grip firm but not painful. Our faces were inches apart. I looked into his eyes, deep, dark pools of defiance and terror, and felt a shiver run down my spine. I released him, my voice a low murmur. "Don't be afraid. You remind me of an old soul I once knew. I can't bear to see you die." It was a lie, a story concocted on the spot, but it wasn't entirely untrue. His stubborn pride was identical to that of the little wolf I had raised. "Old soul, we've never met," he said, his voice trembling with suspicion. He probably thought I was another one of the demons from his past, playing some new, cruel game. I gave his tense back a light pat. "I once raised a little wolf. Your spirits are uncannily similar." His eyes flashed with a sudden, sharp anger mixed with something that looked like shame. You dare compare me to an animal?" He lunged, but I caught both his wrists. He struggled, his body straining against my hold, but he couldn't break free. A flush of red crept up his ears, a sign of pure frustration. I couldn't help but chuckle. The future demon sovereign, so young, so pitiful, and so utterly charming in his fury. "I'll let you go," I coaxed, "if you promise not to strike at me again. I have no intention of harming you. If I wanted you dead, I never would have brought you here." I paused, letting my next words sink in. "Stay here for 20 years. It will be enough time for you to heal completely. After that, you are free to go wherever you please." He fell silent, the fight draining out of him. He didn't raise his hands again, but my eyes were drawn back to the crimson peony between his shoulder blades, a beautiful, deadly secret that was surely causing him agony. I had to find a way to remove it. He finally broke the silence with a bitter laugh. "Right now, I am powerless. You are the Emperor. Whether you choose to kill me or devour me, I have no way to resist." "Then rest and recover," I said, turning to leave. "The court demands my attention. I will return later." The image of that faint blush on his ears stayed with me long after I had left the room. A month passed. Buried under a mountain of administrative duties, I finally found time to check on John. Alexander met me with a litany of complaints. John, it seemed, was thoroughly ungrateful. He had attempted to escape the palace no less than a dozen times, each attempt thwarted, leaving him dragged back like a petulant child. I understood his restlessness. In the demon realm, every moment of his life had been filled with pain and betrayal. The quiet safety of the palace, the warmth of the sun, the gentle care of the physician Euros, it was all alien to him. He was conditioned to expect a trap behind every kindness, a knife behind every smile. I found him standing beneath an old sycamore tree in the courtyard, his posture as tense as a cornered animal's. "You damn emperor," he snarled, his voice raw. "What is it you truly want from me?" I simply arched an eyebrow and gave him a faint smirk. A barely perceptible flush rose on his cheeks. I gestured to the stone table beneath the tree. Sit with me. Guess what I want? I ran my fingers over a fresh stab on his arm, the tingling sensation buzzing at my fingertips. The faint scent of herbs clung to his skin. On a whim, I leaned in and brushed my lips against the shell of his ear. His entire body went rigid. He whipped his head around, his sharp eyes locking onto mine, his face flaming. "You, how dare you? And why not?" I murmured, my fingertips tracing the sharp line of his jaw. "You have a face worth admiring. It's quite pleasing to the eye." Around us, the world seemed to freeze. Alexander went pale as a ghost. The courtiers in the distance held their breath. The gentle, brilliant young emperor was known for his grace, not for such audacious, provocative words. John's ears burned like embers. The future Dark Lord was, in some ways, as pure as freshly fallen snow. I patted his stiff back and settled into the chair beside him, offering a placating smile. "Relax, my lord. I am only teasing. I had my servants bring the white jade chess set from my chambers. I propose a game, but I still don't know your name." He turned his face away, a silent stone wall of defiance. "Since you refuse to speak," I continued with a grin, "I suppose I shall have to call you Little Wolf from now on. You dog of an emperor! Such a temper for a little wolf," I teased. Finally, he turned back, his striking eyes boring into mine. His voice was thin and strained. "My name is John." So it was him. And perhaps I thought he didn't hate me quite as much as he pretended. The chess game ended with my sheepish concession of defeat. "John, your skill is truly remarkable." Alexander, ever my hype man, huffed from the sidelines. "Our emperor is a master. He was merely letting you win." John's ears turned crimson again, and he fought to maintain his stoic expression. "I have nothing left to lose," he said, his gaze turning serious. "I have no power, no leverage. Little Emperor, you will come to regret this." I was about to retort with another jest when his brows suddenly snapped together in pain. A sliver of the blood-red lotus tattoo peeking from beneath the collar of his robe seemed to pulse with an inner heat. And then it hit me. The curse. The story had mentioned that the agony of the cursed peony flared tenfold on the 10th day of each month. Today was the 10th. He had been sitting here, playing chess with me, while enduring an unimaginable level of pain. A surge of fury, hot and sharp, coursed through me. Fury at the cruel plot that had inflicted such suffering upon him. Fury at the forces that had twisted such a beautiful soul into this broken state. One moment he was a picture of poise, the next he had collapsed onto the stone floor. The veins on his neck standing out like cords, his beautiful eyes filled with a mixture of shame and blinding rage. That flower was Oliver's brand, a mark of ownership for his prey. John had been lucky to escape before the curse could fully bind him, sparing him from being utterly broken into submission. I dropped to my knees beside him, my hand gripping his trembling one. "I will save you," I vowed. He didn't look at me, his face a mask of pain and bitter self-mockery. He was probably thinking, "A mere mortal like you, what could you possibly do?" I immediately summoned my most trusted advisors and inquired about the whereabouts of Snowgrass. I knew from the novel that the mythical herb was in the mortal realm, but in my haste to forget the plot, I'd skimmed over the details. I couldn't for the life of me remember where it was. The Grand Tutor Mason's eyes flickered as he studied my grim expression. "I believe the herd is in the possession of Master Snowfield, a reclusive monk. However, he is unpredictable. He has long declared that even an emperor must trade his most precious possession to obtain the snowgrass. So that's why the protagonist in the original story had earned John's undying loyalty. He had given up everything to acquire the herb and save his life. Just then, Alexander rushed in, his face pale with worry. "Your Majesty, John's condition has worsened. He is burning with fever. The physicians say he will not survive the week if it continues." The ministers exchanged knowing glances. The emperor's desperation was palpable. They were now certain that I intended to take a male concubine. I let the silence hang in the air for a moment before giving my command. "Alexander, fetch the relics of the late empress." This was the one thing the young Emperor Leo had treasured above all else, the last mementos of his mother. "Your Majesty, you cannot!" Alexander cried out, the ministers dropping to their knees in a wave of protest. "How can you trade your mother's sacred memory for a man?" I looked at their pleading faces and realized they would never understand. John was more than just a man to me. He was a life I had sworn to protect. I turned and walked away, leaving them kneeling in the silent hall. I changed into a simple white robe, the same one I had worn the day I first found him, and set off with Alexander for the hermit's dwelling. "Is it truly worth it, Your Majesty?" "For him," Alexander whispered. I glanced at him, but remained silent. Why was I going to such lengths for a fictional character? The image of him from that first day flashed in my mind, pale and fragile. I remembered the tiny red dots that covered his arms and legs, which I had initially mistaken for a rash. They weren't. They were needle holes. The novel had described Oliver's cruelest torture, sealing thousands of silver needles inside his victim's body and stitching the wounds shut, so that every movement, every breath, sent waves of agony through their nerves. John had only managed to force the needles out when he detonated his cultivation car, but his powerless mortal body couldn't handle the trauma. The memory of his flushed ears, his eyes dark with pain, solidified my resolve. "Alexander," I said softly, my voice firm, "I want to save him. It is worth it." Master Snowfield accepted my mother's relics without a word, simply bowing deeply. "May your Majesty save the one you wish to save." On the journey back, Alexander marveled, "Your Majesty, with your power, there is nothing you cannot have. Yet you came in person, bearing such a price. Even I pray for your success." Back at the palace, after the snowgrass was administered, John's body began to heal, but he remained unconscious. I dismissed everyone and sat by his bedside, gently tracing the shape of his lips with my fingertip. The softness sent a strange jolt through me. My heart was beating far too fast. I had only known him for a few months, but he occupied my thoughts constantly. The entire court was already whispering about the Emperor's preference for men, and I hadn't even done anything yet. Once he awoke, his cultivation would begin to return. The scars, the wounds, even the cursed peony would all vanish. The palace would no longer be able to hold him. I had advanced his recovery by 2 decades, sparing him an immense amount of suffering. I had derailed the original plot, and frankly I didn't care. All that mattered was that John would be free from pain. Suddenly, he stirred. His eyes opened, sharp with suspicion at first, then flooded with disbelief. "Dog, little Emperor, you healed my Danshan." Seeing that we were alone, his posture relaxed. The haunted look was gone, replaced by the clear, sharp sparkle of a young man full of life. He was even more dazzling than before. "Little Emperor, you saved me. What do you want in return?" In his world, every kindness had a price. He expected to pay. I have nothing now, he said, but once my power is fully restored, I will acquire anything you desire. John was a man who always repaid his debts, good or bad. It was this quality that led him to fall for the protagonist in the book. Now that I was the one who had saved him, would he develop similar feelings for me? The thought was tempting, but I pushed it away. I was the emperor. I didn't want his pity or his gratitude. I placed my hand over his. This time, he didn't pull away. His skin was warm, no longer tinged with the icy chill of impending death. I am the emperor, I said, a smile crinkling the corners of my eyes. My grace is boundless. No repayment is necessary. You are free to go. Deep down, a part of me screamed for him to stay. But I knew I couldn't hold a cultivator, not a future demon lord. He swung his legs off the bed, his movements fluid and light. The color had returned to his face, his lips a healthy pink. Then he smiled. It was the first genuine smile I had ever seen from him, and it was like moonlight breaking through clouds. Euros, silent, pure, and utterly breathtaking. Little Emperor, goodbye, he said. I will bring something back for you. And with a shimmer of displaced air, he was gone. The three realms are Euros, heaven, hell, and the mortal world are Euros generally kept to themselves. For an immortal or demon to cross into the human realm was a rare occurrence. As the ruler of this land, blessed by the dragon tie of heaven, I possessed a unique ability. I could sense any such trespasser, and I had the authority to expel them. It was the universe's way of protecting mortals. I told myself to forget him, to focus on ruling my kingdom, but Alexander kept giving me worried looks, asking if he should send men to find John. I didn't need to. I could feel him. He hadn't gone far. He was in the old summer palace where we first met, mating, motionless as a statue. This isn't me missing him, I declared to a bewildered Alexander. It is the heavens themselves that are concerned for his well-being. Ready the carriage. We are going to the summer palace. The journey was grueling. My mortal body was tossed about in the carriage like a sack of rice. I was sick more than once, arriving at the palace gates pale and trembling, and there he was, standing in the doorway, waiting for me. His red robes billowed in the wind, his sharp, refined features more handsome than I remembered. I stumbled from the carriage, collapsing against his shoulder, my body shaking uncontrollably. Little Emperor, he said, his voice like cool jade, though his hand was already at my waist, steadying me. You've grown weak in just a few days. Mortal flesh is truly fragile. He had grown taller in the months he'd been gone, his eyes now level with mine. John, I gasped, my breath ragged against his neck. Did you miss your empress so much that you waited at the gate for my arrival? A frown touched his lips, his fingers tightening slightly at my waist. You know I can sense intruders in this realm, I continued, pushing my advantage. Why haven't I expelled you? You are still trying to figure out how to repay me, aren't you? I leaned into him, letting him guide me to the bench in the pavilion. His neck flushed a faint pink. I tilted my face toward his, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. The palace is cold and lonely. Stay by my side and drink with me for 19 years. Would that be so terrible? 19 years. The exact amount of time until he was fated to meet the novel's protagonist. He stared at me, his dark eyes unreadable, but the blush creeping up his cheeks betrayed him. I coughed dramatically, my eyes welling with theatrical tears. Your Majesty, your health, Alexander chimed in from the side, a perfect wingman. To travel all this way, and still be met with such ingratitude. John finally broke his silence. "Fine," he said quietly. 19 years is but a blink of an eye to me. But to you, a mortal, it is half a lifetime. You saved my life. I will grant your wish." I gave Alexander a subtle thumbs up behind John's back. I had lured the future demon sovereign back into my grasp. Upon our return, I convened the court and made a grand announcement. John was a celestial guest, a divine visitor sent to aid me in ruling the realm. The whispers and rumors ceased instantly. Anyone who dared to speak ill of him would face my wrath. I sat on the dragon throne, with John seated beside me in a place of honor. He looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. The ministers, who once viewed him with suspicion, now bowed to him with respect. In that moment, I understood. I truly liked him, and if that was the case, I would be damned if I let anyone see him as a mere plaything. In the demon realm, he had been denied all honor and love. But this was my world, and here, I would give him the dignity he deserved. After that day, he no longer flinched when I called his name. He began to smile more freely, sharing stories of his youth, carefully weighing out the humiliation and pain. He spoke of the small moments of joy he had managed to find amidst the suffering, and my heart ached for him. Seeing him laugh, I began to believe that my arrival in this world was no accident. Perhaps fate had sent me here for the sole purpose of saving him. 10 years passed in the quiet rhythm of our shared lives. We traveled together from the misty rivers of Jainan to the harsh deserts of the West. He risked his own life more than once to retrieve rare elixirs for me. Herbs said to prolong mortal life. I urged him to use them for his own cultivation, but he always refused. "Your Majesty, you are the one who is frail. Take these and stay strong." I was utterly, irrevocably in love. I was 30 now, but his face remained unchanged, as timeless as sculpted jade. "John," I murmured one evening as we stood on a balcony overlooking the capital, "am I getting old? Do I look worse for the wear?" He stood beside me, his hands clasped behind his back, a rare light of amusement in his sharp eyes. "My emperor, you are still the most radiant man alive. None can compare." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a low, intimate whisper. "You are not old, little emperor. You are just getting better looking." The wind howled around us, but the only sound I could hear was the frantic, thunderous beating of my own heart. In my old life, I had cared for nothing and no one. Now, here I was in love with a man. And a man from a book, no less. But life was short. Why shouldn't I live as I pleased? My advisors, however, did not share my sentiment. "Your Majesty," Mason said, his face grim. "John's face has not changed in a decade. He is not of our world." I knew they were right. Humans and spirits walked different paths. He and I were never meant to be. And besides, I would be dead soon. The novel had been very specific. Emperor Leo dies of a sudden heart attack at the age of 31. I had 3 months left. What harm could there be in one last taste of pleasure before the end? With that thought burning in my mind, I stormed into John's chambers in the middle of the day. He was mating, his face serene. He knew it was me, but he didn't open his eyes. I crept closer, my gaze fixed on the delicate curve of his eyelashes, the smooth plane of his cheek, the soft line of his mouth. I wondered what it would feel like to kiss him. I stood there, watching him, for so long that dusk began to fall. I couldn't hold back any longer. I leaned down and pressed my lips to his. They were as soft as I had imagined. Before I could deepen the kiss, his eyes flew open. They were wide with shock. Panic seized me. I bolted from the room like a coward, my heart hammering against my ribs. For 10 years, an entire empire had bowed to my will, and now a single moment of vulnerability had me trembling like a schoolboy. I started avoiding him after that. Strangely, he didn't seek me out. Perhaps I had frightened him. Or worse, perhaps he was disgusted by the affections of a man. If he were anyone else, I would have forced him to stay. But this was John, the future demon sovereign, destined to love the novel's protagonist. The same fate that brought me here could easily enforce this original plot. If he didn't want to see me, then so be it. My time is running out, and the man I love seems to want nothing to do with me. Perhaps this is how my story is meant to end, a forgotten footnote in his epic tale. So, what do you think? Is John truly disgusted by the Emperor's kiss, or is there another reason for his silence? Let me know your theories down in the comments. And if you were as captivated by this story of fated love and rewritten destinies as I was, don't forget to show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel for more.